My name is Mildred Parker. I'm 31 years old. And this is the story of how my family erased me like I was nothing, only for me to take back everything they tried to steal, right in front of their eyes. 3 weeks before my engagement party, I was sitting in a little print shop on Marlowe Avenue, picking out the final invitation samples. I was on a high, laughing at a meme Emma, my best friend and maid of honor, had sent in our group chat when my phone buzzed. Mom. The word flashed on the screen with a photo of her standing with my sister, Ashley, at last year's Christmas brunch. I still had the image saved, even though I often debated deleting it out of sheer bitterness. Hey, Mom. I answered, still smiling. Her voice was flat. Cold. Cancel the engagement party. At first, I thought I'd misheard her. What? You heard me, Mildred. Cancel it. We're throwing a party for Ashley instead. She just got promoted to director, and the whole family wants to be there. I blinked so hard I nearly dropped my phone. The shop's warm lighting suddenly felt like an interrogation lamp. Wait, what? The engagement party is in 3 weeks. The invitations are literally being printed right now. You knew that. Mom sighed, and I swear I could hear her rolling her eyes. Ashley's the youngest department director at her firm. This is huge. Be reasonable. You can reschedule yours. It's just a party. I swallowed the sting in my throat. I've been planning this for 6 months. The venue is booked, the band paid, the cake ordered. You really expect me to just cancel everything? I'm not saying cancel the wedding, she replied, her tone now laced with that condescending patience she used to use when I was 10. Just the party. It's not like you're the only person in the world with a fiancé. That did it. I'm not canceling anything, I said, my voice shaking now. If you want to celebrate Ashley, pick another day. Mom's tone shifted from sugar to steel in one breath. You're being selfish. Why does it always have to be about you? I sat there stunned, the sample invitation in my hand trembling. And just like that, the call ended. No goodbye. Just silence and a screen that went dark. I sat frozen in that little print shop as the designer asked if I wanted the lavender script or the gold foil. I couldn't answer. Because what do you say when your own mother just told you your engagement party doesn't matter? That night, I sat with Marcus as my fiancé, on our couch, the invitation proof still in my lap, but my heart in my throat. I don't get it, I whispered. It's like I don't exist unless I'm cheering for Ashley. Marcus put his arm around me. You don't have to prove anything to them, Mildred. But I wanted to. God, I wanted them to care. 2 days later, I started getting texts. First from Aunt Brenda in Florida. Then Uncle Leon. Sorry to hear the party's off. Hope you and Marcus are okay. Congrats to Ashley. We'll be flying in for her celebration. I felt like the floor gave out beneath me. My mother hadn't just refused to come to my party, she had gone behind my back, told everyone I'd cancelled, and rerouted the guests to Ashley's promotion event. Same day. Same guest list. Same venue, Norwell Restaurant, the place I had paid a $5,000 deposit for. I called Marcus in a panic. He was at his tux fitting and I could hear the rustling of fabric as he spoke. She's sabotaging everything, I said, my voice cracking. She told people we broke up. He was quiet for a second. Then, say that again? I read off a few of the texts. They think I couldn't handle Ashley getting the spotlight. That I cancelled out of jealousy. When Marcus came home, we sat side by side on the floor, our engagement binder open, guest list between us like a minefield. I started calling people one by one. Explaining. Clarifying. Some were shocked. Some said they'd already changed their flights. Others, bless them, said they'd cancel on Ashley and come to ours instead. But each call chipped away at something inside me. Your mom told us you just couldn't handle Ashley getting promoted, one cousin said. Honestly, I thought it was weird, but she sounded convinced. By 2 a.m., my voice was hoarse, my hands shaking, but I felt like I had to keep going, like if I didn't, I would lose myself altogether. The next day, I went to the one person in the family who still carried weight, Aunt Cecilia, my dad's sister. She'd been like a second mom to me when I was younger, back when Ashley used to take my books and rip the covers off just to watch me cry. I brought cookies, her favorite hazelnut ones, and walked up the creaky stairs of her little brownstone. I was ready to tell her everything. But as I reached the door, I heard voices inside. Quinn's being dramatic, isn't she? It was Melissa, my cousin. She's just upset Ashley's getting attention again. Then Aunt Cecilia chimed in. I know. It's always the same with her. Always playing the victim. I felt the sting before the slap. My feet stayed rooted, but my heart felt like it had collapsed. They believed my mother. They believed I had cancelled everything out of jealousy. They didn't even ask me. When I finally stepped inside, both of them jumped. Melissa spilled her tea. I came to invite you to my engagement party, I said evenly, my eyes locked on them, but clearly you've already decided what kind of person I am. Aunt Cecilia looked pale. Mildred. No, I cut in. You never called to ask. You just believed what you were told. That I was jealous. That I couldn't handle my sister's success. Never mind the flowers I ordered. The venue I booked. The music I paid for. Or the fact that I've spent the last 72 hours cleaning up a lie I didn't even start. They were quiet. Both of them. Finally, Melissa whispered, I'm sorry. I didn't think. No. You didn't. I looked at Aunt Cecilia, her eyes filled with regret now. If you believe me, I said, voice low, then help me. I can't undo this alone. She stood slowly, placed her hand on mine, and said, I'll call the family. We'll fix this. And for the first time in days, I let myself hope. That same night, Aunt Cecilia made good on her word. She called our West Coast cousins, texted her high school best friends, who were all still close with my mom, and reached out to a few old church friends who hadn't yet picked a side. Melissa, true to her apology, offered to contact the older family members who rarely used social media, the ones who still clung to their landlines and had photo albums for every grandchild's birthday. By the next morning, messages started rolling in. Some apologized. Others were confused. A few didn't respond at all. But enough of them understood now, enough to shift the tide. Aunt Cecilia even recorded a video of herself explaining what had happened and sent it privately to a handful of relatives. This is not drama. This is injustice. Mildred did not cancel. Her own mother told everyone the wrong story. I stand with her. By Friday afternoon, just 1 week before the engagement party, I was cautiously optimistic. Until I received a call from the venue. Hi Mildred, the receptionist began, her voice uneasy. We just wanted to confirm your cancellation for next Saturday? My blood ran cold. I didn't cancel anything. She paused. Are you sure? Someone claiming to be you called yesterday, said you were canceling due to a family emergency, and even used your reservation number. I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. That wasn't me. That's fraud. The woman apologized profusely and assured me the booking hadn't been processed yet, but my heart was already racing. I knew who it was. There was no doubt in my mind. Ashley. She'd always been good at manipulation, twisting the truth just enough to sound believable. But this was calculated. I immediately asked the venue to password protect the reservation. Then I called Marcus. She tried to cancel the entire thing. He was silent for a moment. Then, we need to play offense now. That weekend, Marcus and I sat down and composed a carefully worded social media post, public but polite. No direct accusations. Just clarity. We wrote about how much this event meant to us, how misinformation had spread, and how we were thankful for everyone who continued to stand by us. Then, with a quiet kind of fury, I attached a new RSVP link. The numbers climbed within hours. But not without consequence. On Sunday morning, I got a phone call from a private number. I picked up instinctively. "You think you're clever?" It was my mother. I didn't respond. "You embarrassed this family. You split everyone in half with your little pity parade." Ashley cried all night. I stared out the window, watching a squirrel dart across the patio. "Is that all?" I said evenly. She sneered, "You'll regret this." Then hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel much anymore. Just a quiet resolve forming deep in my chest like a wall being built brick by brick. On Monday, something even uglier happened. I received a text from Aunt Ruth in Wyoming. "I'm so sorry to hear about the breakup. I hope you're okay. Ashley told us the wedding's off?" The lie had escalated. Marcus and I were still very much together, very much in love, and planning our future. But now Ashley was telling people we had split, to further dismantle our engagement from every angle. I had tried being polite. I had tried defending myself with grace. But this? This was war. It was time to fight back. I dug through my emails and pulled up the contract for the original venue I had chosen, the Norwell restaurant, the one my mom and Ashley had hijacked. I read through the fine print, page by page. That's when I saw it. The person whose name was on the contract, the person who had paid the deposit, was me. Not Mom. Not Ashley. Me. And according to Clause 14b, the venue could not host two separate events for the same client on the same day. My breath caught. I called the restaurant immediately and asked for the event's coordinator. When I explained the situation and provided my contract ID, her voice changed immediately. "Wait, you're the original client?" "Yes. And I never authorized any changes." There was silence. Then a quiet curse under her breath. "They told us they were upgrading the event and merging it with a company milestone celebration. Said you were unavailable." My lips curled. "Well, that's not true. And if this venue hosts a party for Ashley Harper next weekend, you'll be in breach of contract." They promised to look into it. And 2 hours later, I received an official email. "Dear Ms. Parker, after reviewing our records and recognizing your sole authority over the event scheduled for the 17th, we regret to inform you that we must cancel the alternate booking placed under Ms. Ashley Harper's name. Your event will proceed as originally planned. Please accept our sincerest apologies for the confusion." I smiled. I didn't even need to call Ashley. The message would be loud and clear. She thought she could steal my spotlight? I just snatched back the entire stage. The week that followed felt like an out-of-body experience. People started talking, this time in my favor. Quiet murmurs in the family group chat. Apologies slipped into Facebook messages. Emma, my maid of honor, started fielding questions from people trying to get back on the guest list. The momentum had finally shifted. But Ashley wasn't done. 2 days before the party, the photo service called me. "Hi Mildred, we got a strange call. Someone asked to cancel your photography package and delete all backup files." I froze. "They even provided some of your information, but something felt off." The caller sounded pushy. So we held off. I nearly fell to the floor with relief. "Thank you," I whispered. "That wasn't me. Please do not cancel anything unless I call you directly." I hung up and sat in silence for a full minute. She wasn't just trying to sabotage me. She was trying to erase me. But it wouldn't work. Not this time. Saturday arrived. And as I stood behind the gate at Norwell Restaurant's outdoor garden, holding a soft lavender bouquet, my fingers trembling, I peeked around the corner and gasped. The venue was packed. Aunt Julie from Denver. Uncle Raymond, smiling from ear to ear. Emma waving at me with a glass of champagne in her hand. And at the center of it all, Marcus, standing under the floral arch, looking like every prayer I'd ever whispered into my pillow had come true. There was no sign of Mom. No Dad. No Ashley. And I didn't care. Not anymore. I walked through the gate, into a world I had built brick by brick, not for applause, but for freedom. Freedom from comparison. Freedom from being second place. Freedom to be exactly who I am. As I walked past the tables, each draped in soft cream linens and topped with dried eucalyptus and pale lilac flowers, I was enveloped by warmth. Not the heat of the sun, but the kind that came from smiles. Hugs. Soft murmurs of, "You deserve this," and "We're so proud of you." I had braced myself for awkward energy, forced politeness, or even empty chairs. But there was none of that. There was laughter. There was dancing. There were genuine congratulations. Aunt Ruth pulled me aside at one point and said softly, "We were wrong to believe her. We didn't ask you. We just assumed." I nodded, blinking back tears. "Thank you for being here anyway." She squeezed my hands. "You've handled all this with more grace than most would." And that was when I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was exhausted, yes, but not bitter. There was something deeply healing about watching my own story unfold in truth, not through someone else's twisted lens. When Marcus took the mic to thank our guests, he pulled me beside him. He cleared his throat, voice steady and full. "These past few weeks have tested us. But you're all here because you believed in the truth. You showed up, not out of obligation, but out of love. And that means more than anything we could ever say." Then he looked at me. His eyes were shining. "And to Mildred, my partner, my peace, you are more than enough. Always have been. Always will be." I bit my lip to stop the tears, but they came anyway. I stepped forward and took the mic, just for a moment. "I just want to say thank you for being my family, not by blood, but by choice." There was a quiet pause. Then applause. And then, unexpectedly, my 81-year-old grandmother Beatrice shuffled to the center of the patio, raised her hand, and said, "All right. Who thinks they can beat me at Texas-style line dancing?" The music shifted. Country rhythm filled the air. And suddenly the entire patio turned into a dance floor. Marcus laughed so hard he had to sit down. Emma kicked off her heels and joined Grandma. Even Uncle Harry got up and did something that resembled a two-step. I stood still for a moment and just watched. This was joy. Real joy. Joy that wasn't stolen or silenced. Joy I had built from the wreckage of my own family's betrayal. As the sun dipped lower, lanterns strung across the trees began to glow. The lake behind the venue shimmered like liquid gold. Someone lit sparklers near the dance floor. The chatter shifted from celebration to reflection. I overheard someone say, "I still can't believe her mom did that. Ashley never even apologized." "She didn't need to," someone else replied. "Mildred handled it better than all of us." I didn't turn around. I didn't need to know who said it. I just smiled. At the end of the night, Marcus and I stood together near the archway where we'd taken our couple portraits. Guests slowly trickled out, giving us hugs and promises of wedding day returns. That's when I felt it. A stillness. A lightness I hadn't known I was missing. It wasn't just the end of a party. It was the end of something deeper. A chapter. A lifelong ache. I wasn't trying to earn anyone's approval anymore. They could keep their standards. Their judgments. Their golden child. I had my own light now. The next morning, Marcus and I went to our favorite little cafe, the one where we had our first date. We sat by the window, cinnamon waffles between us, just quiet. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. I stared at it for exactly 3 seconds. Then I picked up and put it on speaker. The moment the line connected, her voice exploded. You ungrateful brat. You humiliated this family for what? Your selfish ego? Marcus looked up sharply. I kept my fork down. Was it worth it, Mildred? She snarled. Ashley cried all night. Her event was a ghost town while you paraded around soaking up applause. I said nothing for a moment. Then calmly replied, everything that happened was because of you. Her voice tightened. Don't you dare blame me. You told people we broke up. You redirected guests. You tried to cancel my venue. You lied. I could hear her breathing, sharp and uneven. You are disgusting, she hissed. You always had to make everything about you. Your wedding is nothing more than a show. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table. I stayed calm. I have nothing more to say. I've been silent long enough. And I hung up. Seconds later, a text appeared. Ashley, hope you enjoyed humiliating me. You're going to pay for what happened last night. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What did she say? I read the message aloud, then chuckled. A revenge threat. How classy. He leaned back. You don't need to respond. But we need to be ready. I nodded. I knew what Ashley was capable of. She had spent a lifetime flipping the narrative, making me the villain for wanting a voice. This time, I had the mic. And I wasn't giving it back. That afternoon, I got an email from our photo company. Someone had tried again to cancel our package and delete all files. But the company had flagged our account after the last attempt and refused to make changes without direct confirmation. They saved our memories. Literally. When I told Marcus, he just said, we start documenting everything. From now on. It was smart. Because this wasn't over. Ashley was just getting started. And if she wanted to play dirty? Then I'd stop playing nice. 3 days later, I got a call from Rachel, Marcus's mother. Her voice was soft, cautious, but something in her tone sent a chill through me. Mildred, she said gently. Do you think you could stop by the house this afternoon? There's something I think you should see. I didn't ask questions. I just said yes. Marcus didn't say a word the entire drive over. But I could feel it, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand squeezed mine slightly tighter than usual at red lights. When we arrived, his father, Howard, was already seated in the living room, next to a thick folder and an open iPad. My stomach dropped. Rachel waved us in. We weren't sure whether to tell you over the phone, but this felt bigger. On the screen were emails. Dozens of them. Printed screenshots of fragmented messages, conversations taken wildly out of context, or entirely fabricated. They were supposedly from me. Conversations claiming I was cheating on Marcus. Messages to someone named Dean, full of romantic innuendo and timelines that made no sense. I've never spoken to anyone named Dean in my life, I said immediately, flipping through the packet. This is all fake. I don't even use this emoji. Marcus sat beside me, eyes scanning the forged screenshots. Then he let out a slow, familiar breath and murmured, "It's Ashley." Howard looked at him. You're sure? I've seen her do this before. She used to prank people in college by mimicking their tone online. She's meticulous, she'll copy profile pics, usernames, even typos. Rachel nodded grimly. We figured it wasn't real. But we thought you should see it for yourself. The email came from an anonymous burner address. But they CC'd both of us. I stared down at the images, my name, my photo, my words, except they weren't mine. Not one. And still, someone had tried to weaponize them. To poison the one place I'd finally found peace. Marcus turned to me slowly, gently. You okay? I looked up, tears threatening behind my eyes. It's time. I need people to see the truth. That night, I drove across town to my grandmother's house. The one person who had always believed that someday our family would come back together. I used to believe her. She opened the door in her soft pink sweater, the scent of peppermint tea wafting behind her. She smiled as she ushered me in, but when I pulled out my phone, her smile faded. What's this, sweetheart? I pressed play. First, the voicemail from my mother, her voice screeching about humiliation and selfishness. Then the audio from the venue, Ashley, clearly stating, Quinn Harper doesn't need the photos anymore. Cancel everything. Grandma Beatrice didn't speak for a long time. She just sat there, tea untouched, hands trembling. Finally, she looked up at me. I'm sorry. I blinked. I kept asking you to forgive, she said softly, thinking it was the noble thing. I didn't realize I was asking you to endure abuse. I swallowed. I didn't play this to hurt anyone. I just needed someone to know I wasn't making it up. She reached across the table and took my hand. I know, darling. And I'm with you now. Whatever happens next, I'm with you. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until she said it. For the first time in what felt like years, I exhaled. But that peace didn't last long. The next morning, my phone buzzed at exactly 7:13 a.m. A long message from my mother. A full paragraph of fury. You traitor. You recorded your own mother and played it for Grandma. You're disgusting. I've tolerated you for 30 years, and I'm done. You are no longer my daughter. 30 seconds later, another one. Dad, I didn't think you'd stoop to spy games. Good luck with your cheap little wedding. As far as I'm concerned, you never existed. I sat in bed, staring at the screen. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat still. Because in that moment, everything finally became clear. I had spent a lifetime trying to prove myself to people who didn't want to see me. Who didn't want to choose me. And if love required silence, if it meant enduring humiliation in the name of keeping peace, then maybe that love was never real. I looked at Marcus, still half asleep beside me, and knew I had already found my family. That morning, the ripple effects of Ashley's campaign started hitting my job. Whispers in the hallway. Coworkers who suddenly avoided eye contact. A few who had been warm last week now paused conversations mid-sentence when I entered the room. Then, mid-lunch, I got a call from Taylor, our HR team lead. Can you stop by the conference room? When I arrived, she had a folder open in front of her. Inside were printed screenshots, posts from anonymous accounts accusing me of being manipulative, dishonest, a toxic presence in relationships. She's a fraud. She made up the engagement drama for attention. She's cheated before. Ask around. My mouth went dry. Where is this coming from? I asked. Taylor sighed. We're not making any accusations. But some team members say it's creating a hostile environment. Legal asked us to document everything. I know where it's coming from, I muttered. She nodded slightly. We figured. Just be careful. And document everything you can. I walked back to my desk in a fog. Ashley hadn't stopped. She didn't care about her own party. Or her job. Or even our parents' reputation. She only cared about winning. And the only way she knew how to do that was to destroy me. 2 days later, Marcus came home with a look I knew too well. She called me. I froze. He dropped his bag. Blocked number. Started all sweet. Then flipped. Told me you had an affair with your old boss. My stomach twisted. Neil? He nodded. I asked her if she had proof. She stuttered. Then I told her if she called again, I'd file a report for defamation. I stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or collapse. But he just pulled me in. We're almost through this. And he was right. Because Ashley's downfall had already begun. Just as the final pieces of my engagement party began to settle into memory, the storm Ashley created started to turn on her. It began with a message from Melissa, my cousin who once doubted me but had since stepped firmly into my corner. She's being watched at work, Melissa wrote. Word is upper management launched an internal review. Too many red flags. Too many complaints. I wasn't shocked. Ashley worked at a top-tier media firm in Seattle. A company that prided itself on professionalism, innovation, and poise under pressure. Ashley had none of those things when she was pushed out of the spotlight. The cracks were beginning to show, and this time, she was unraveling publicly. A few days later, Melissa forwarded me a copy of an internal email that had been quietly leaked from Ashley's company. Effective immediately, Ashley Harper is suspended pending a performance and conduct investigation. No fanfare. No sympathy. Just a sterile sentence that marked the beginning of her descent. And I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't want her destroyed. I wanted peace. I wanted her to stop dragging my name through the mud. But when someone spends every waking moment trying to ruin another person, eventually, they forget to protect themselves. Her obsession had consumed her. Soon after, an anonymous post appeared on her company's internal confession board, a space meant for employees to share anonymous experiences, vent frustrations, or celebrate each other. It read, "There's a team leader here who lives for attention. Her jealousy is so intense that she'd rather sabotage others than succeed herself. I used to admire her. Now I avoid eye contact." No name was mentioned. But everyone knew. Melissa texted again, "It's spreading. People are whispering her name in the break room. She's been demoted. Moved to the digital archive department. No creative work. She's fading." I didn't reply right away. I just sat still on my couch, hands resting on my lap. The full circle had arrived. Not by force. Not because I plotted it. Ashley had destroyed herself. And in the silence that followed, I felt something I hadn't in months. Relief. The following Friday, 1 week before the wedding, I sat alone in our living room. On the coffee table were the final guest list printouts and a stack of pristine white envelopes. I picked up my pen, ready to finish the last of the invitations. Only 3 names remained on the list. Mom. Dad. Ashley. I stared at them for a long time. Logically, I knew what needed to be done. But there was a softer voice inside me, a wounded child that still whispered, "Maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll come if you ask." I texted Marcus, "Need a few minutes alone." "At home." He replied instantly, "Take your time. Corner cafe. Love you." I looked up at the shelf beside our window. A framed photo from the engagement party sat there now, me and Marcus, arms wrapped around each other, glowing with joy. Surrounded by friends, family, truth. No comparison. No sabotage. No apologies needed. I looked down at the 3 names. Then slowly, quietly, I drew a single black line through each one. The wedding took place on an early fall afternoon in Santa Rosa, at a hilltop venue called Lavender Crest Garden. We had picked it months ago, back when everything still felt new and untouched. The garden was quiet, wild, and beautiful, just the way I'd always imagined. I walked down the aisle on Aunt Cecilia's arm. Grandma Beatrice sat in the front row wearing seafoam green, her smile steadying me more than any speech or blessing could. No seats were left empty. Emma. Melissa. Marcus's college roommates. Old co-workers. New friends. Every face held something in common. They were there because they wanted to be. Not one person asked about my parents. Not a single soul uttered Ashley's name. And for the first time in my life, I felt no need to explain. Marcus stood beneath an arch of olive branches and lavender, waiting for me. His eyes never left mine as I walked closer, bouquet trembling slightly in my hands. The officiant began. Marcus went first, his voice thick but strong. "Mildred, I won't promise to make everything perfect, but I will promise this, you'll never fight alone again. Not with me beside you." Tears blurred my vision. Then it was my turn. I used to think family was something you had to cling to, even when it hurt. But today, I know better. Family is made of the people who see you, hear you, and choose you every time. We exchanged rings, not in the glow of some theatrical display, but surrounded by the people who had shown up. Who had stayed. And when the ceremony ended, the applause wasn't explosive. It was warm. Earnest. Unshakable. After the reception, Marcus and I stood on the balcony of our suite overlooking the valley. Below, the lights from the wedding tents still shimmered, music drifting up through the trees. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. "You okay?" he asked, his chin resting on my shoulder. I nodded slowly. "I never thought I'd feel this light." He smiled. "Our family looked beautiful today." "Yeah," I whispered. "And I finally understand something." "What's that?" "Blood isn't always the root. Sometimes you have to replant." He pulled me closer. The next morning, as we packed for our short honeymoon getaway, my phone buzzed several times. Messages from my mother. My father. One from a suspicious email address with Ashley's name in it. I didn't read them. I just turned the phone off. Not out of bitterness. But because I no longer needed answers from people who never asked questions in the first place. I had my own family now. And they had chosen me, without conditions, without comparisons, without manipulation. Just love. The honeymoon was short, just a quiet, 4-day stay at a lakeside cabin in Mendocino with no cell service, no notifications, and no noise from the outside world. We cooked simple meals, watched the fog roll across the water, and spent hours in silence that said more than any apology I'd ever craved from my parents. And for the first time in years, I didn't flinch at silence. I embraced it. When we returned to the city, life resumed gently. Friends dropped by with wedding gifts. Marcus's co-workers threw a small welcome-back lunch. Emma sent over a handcrafted photo album from the wedding, filled with dried lavender sprigs and printed quotes from our vows. But the peace was short-lived. Because drama doesn't die in a day. The first ripple came from work. 2 weeks after returning, I noticed the shift, again. Conversations paused when I walked into the room. Slack messages that had once ended with smiley faces now felt cold. One morning, I walked into the break room to find 2 of my colleagues whispering over their phones. They froze when they saw me. I brushed it off until Taylor from HR called me in again. "Mildred," she said, her expression tense, "we've received another round of reports." She slid a folder toward me. Inside were new screenshots from anonymous social media accounts, this time claiming I manipulated Marcus into marriage, that I ruined my sister's career, that I was exploiting the narrative of being a victim for personal gain. She used her wedding to play the martyr. She faked a breakdown to get attention. Her own parents disowned her. How do we know she's not the problem? I closed the folder. My hands were trembling. "This is harassment," I said. Taylor nodded. "I agree. But we can't act unless it crosses a more direct line. Legal's watching. In the meantime, continue documenting everything." I left that meeting with a weight in my chest I hadn't felt since high school, when Ashley told our entire class I'd cheated on a biology quiz just because I got a better grade than her. The rumor stuck for weeks. It didn't matter that the teacher cleared my name. The stain lingered. Ashley didn't need proof. She just needed volume. That night, Marcus came home late from a work dinner. I was already curled up on the couch, laptop closed, tea untouched. He dropped his bag and walked over, kneeling in front of me. "I need to tell you something." I braced myself. "She called me again." I felt my shoulders stiffen. "Blocked number?" He nodded. "Said she had evidence that you were having an affair with Neil again." "Again?" I laughed bitterly. "I never had an affair with him the first time." "I know." "I shut it down," he said calmly. "I told her if she contacts either of us again, we're filing for a restraining order." I leaned back into the couch, hand over my eyes. "How is she not tired?" "Because she's losing," Marcus said, sitting beside me. "And this is all she has left." 2 days later, Melissa texted me again. A board member at Ashley's firm sent in a formal complaint about her conduct. She's on probation now. They moved her desk to the far end of the building, stripped her of all client-facing responsibilities. She's basically invisible now. I stared at the message for a long time. Ashley, the rising star of our family, was imploding in real time, and the saddest part? She had done it all to herself. I didn't post about it. I didn't celebrate it. But I felt a quiet justice settle inside me. She tried to destroy my engagement, my reputation, my marriage, and my sanity. And now, she had no spotlight to steal. Still, the aftermath was far from over. One gray Wednesday, I got a call from a woman named Regina. She worked in compliance at my company. She asked to meet privately. When I arrived, she handed me a plain brown envelope. "We recently received a series of anonymous packages," she said, "targeting your employment here. But when we examined the evidence, it became clear they were doctored. Inside were forged emails between me and clients I had never even spoken to. Accusations of unprofessional conduct. Screenshots that didn't align with timestamps." Regina looked at me with calm authority. "You're not in trouble. But whoever is doing this, if you know who they are, it might be time to take legal action." I nodded slowly. "I know exactly who it is." Marcus and I spoke with an attorney the following week. We gathered every message, every email, every suspicious call and attempt to sabotage my wedding and career. We logged the venue cancellation, the photo service call, the fake messages to his parents, and even the anonymous packages. "This is more than harassment," our lawyer said after reviewing the evidence. "It's a coordinated campaign. And it's criminal." Still, part of me hesitated. Filing charges meant drawing a permanent line in the sand. It meant saying, officially, "You are no longer my sister." I stared out the window as our lawyer printed a draft of the restraining order. Across the street, a mother helped her child step off the curb, hand clenched in tiny hand. I wondered what it felt like to be raised by someone who would hold your hand without also using it to throw you under the bus. That night, I visited Grandma Beatrice again. She was in her garden, trimming roses as twilight settled. She looked up, smiled faintly, and said, "You look tired, baby." "I am." She motioned me over. We sat together on the old bench. "Is it wrong to want to file a restraining order against your own blood?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "When someone keeps breaking into your home, you don't leave the door unlocked just because they used to live there." I looked at her, throat tight. "You don't need to feel guilty for protecting your peace, Mildred." And just like that, I knew what I had to do. The court date was set for the following Monday. I didn't tell anyone besides Marcus and our attorney. Not even Grandma Beatrice. I wanted to walk in, file the paperwork, and walk out, no spectacle, no drama. Just a quiet final boundary drawn with ink, not emotion. The judge listened carefully as our lawyer laid out the timeline. The harassment. The impersonations. The coordinated lies meant to fracture my personal life and my career. I sat still, hands folded, heart pounding not with fear, but with a kind of finality. Ashley didn't show up. She was served the paperwork but never responded, never countered, never even called. It was the loudest silence I'd ever heard from her. Like she had finally run out of tricks. When the judge granted the restraining order, it felt anticlimactic. I expected to feel victory. Elation. But all I felt was relief. Like I'd dropped a 1,000-pound weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. That night, Marcus and I opened a bottle of wine, not to celebrate, but to mark the end of something. A private closing ceremony between two people who had survived something invisible but brutal. "You did the right thing," he said as we sat on the floor, backs to the couch. I nodded. "It doesn't feel good. But it feels necessary. Sometimes that's what justice is," he replied. Not a fist in the air. Just, finally breathing. The following week, I returned to work like nothing had happened. And for the first time in months, no one whispered when I walked into a room. Taylor from HR gave me a small nod of acknowledgement, and the tension in the office seemed to lift as if everyone had silently agreed to leave the wreckage behind. Then, just when I thought the chapter was fully closed, one last letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. The paper smelled faintly of my parents' home, lavender detergent and cedarwood floors. I hesitated before opening it. Inside were just 3 lines. "You destroyed this family. Ashley is broken. And you will regret pushing us away." No signature. No plea for forgiveness. Just blame, pure and concentrated. I folded the letter once. Then again. And placed it in the fire pit on our back porch. The flames devoured it in seconds. No dramatic music. No gasp-worthy moment. Just ash. That weekend, Marcus and I hosted a small dinner at our home for the people who had stood by us. Aunt Cecilia. Melissa. Emma. A few close friends and neighbors. Grandma Beatrice sat at the head of the table, smiling every time someone passed her a dish. During dessert, Emma stood up and tapped her glass. "I just want to toast Mildred," she said, eyes shining. "For surviving what none of us fully understood. For walking through the fire and coming out without burning others." There was laughter. There were toasts. There were tears. And when the night ended, and Marcus and I stood on the porch waving goodbye, I leaned into his shoulder and whispered, "I think I'm finally okay." And I was. The next morning, I cleared the last 3 things from our wedding board: the save the dates, the RSVP tracker, and the guest list. I held it for a moment. Then, without hesitation, I drew a line through the words, "Parents of the bride." It didn't hurt this time. Because I had redefined what that meant. Family wasn't who showed up in your baby photos. It was who stood by you when everything you'd built was under attack. It was who called you on your worst days. Who defended you when no one else did. Who chose to understand instead of judge. Ashley's career never fully recovered. She eventually left the firm and moved to a smaller city. Last I heard, she was working freelance jobs and trying to repair her online reputation. She never apologized. She never even acknowledged the truth. My parents never reached out again. Not even after the restraining order. And that was fine. Because my life continued, bright and quiet in mine. I published a short essay about the experience in a lifestyle magazine under the title, "When Your Family Erases You, Rewrite Yourself." It went viral. Women from all over the country wrote to me. Some said, "You just told my story." Others wrote, "I needed permission to walk away. You gave it to me." I didn't set out to be an example. But maybe surviving with your heart intact is its own kind of influence. Now, years later, Marcus and I have built something beautiful. A home filled with peace, not performance. A family made of loyalty, not legacy. Sometimes we take out the wedding album, flip through the pages with our son in our lap, and tell him about the day we said I do. And when he asks why my parents weren't there, I just say, they chose not to be part of our story. He nods, like he understands already. And maybe that's the point. We are not bound by who raised us. We are bound by who lifts us. Who holds our hand in public and defends our name in private. Who loves us when we are nothing but bruises and still sees someone worth standing beside. So here's what I'll say to anyone listening. Don't chase the people who chose to disappear when your light dimmed. Build your own garden. Host your own celebration. And never let anyone steal your seat at the table you built. Because in the end, real love doesn't demand silence. It hands you the mic. And waits patiently while you speak. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's peace. It's walking away with your dignity intact, while those who tried to silence you are left echoing in their own emptiness. If this story moved you, leave a comment below and tell us what you would have done in Mildred's place. Don't forget to subscribe for more real, raw, and riveting stories here on Revenge Echoes, where stories speak louder than revenge.